The moment that changed everything started with a phone call. I was standing in a resident's apartment when the customer service representative said something I will never forget. Her voice was cold, impatient, like she couldn't care less. "Ma'am, if you can't answer the verification questions, we can't help you." The woman she was talking to was 90 years old. She could barely hear the phone. And when the call ended, she just stared quietly at the black screen of her TV. That was the moment I decided something. If that company didn't want to treat my residents with respect, they weren't going to do business in our building anymore. I work as the maintenance director at an independent senior living center. Think of it like an apartment complex, but everyone living there is a senior citizen. Many of them are in their late 70s, 80s, even 90s. Some are retired teachers, some are veterans, some raised entire families and are now enjoying their final years in a quiet, supportive community. Our facility is family-owned, and we take that idea seriously. We provide 3 meals a day, housekeeping, transportation, and activities. Our entire mission is simple: keep the residents safe, happy, and comfortable. And honestly, I take that responsibility very personally. These people deserve dignity, they deserve respect, and they definitely deserve not to be taken advantage of. But unfortunately, that's exactly what started happening. You see, our facility doesn't provide television service. Residents arrange it themselves if they want it. And if you've ever spent time in a senior living center, you know something important. Television isn't just entertainment. For many residents, it's their daily routine. Morning news with coffee, afternoon game shows, evening movies. Sometimes it's the highlight of their day. So when their televisions stop working, it really matters. And over the past year, more and more TVs kept going out. At first it seemed random. One resident, then another, then 3 more the next week. Soon my maintenance office was getting constant work orders. TV not working, signal lost, no channels. Every single time, I'd go up to the apartment and check everything. Cables plugged in, connections secure, no obstructions, and almost every time, the problem wasn't something I could fix. It was the satellite company. So I'd call the company. They'd send a technician. The technician would push a few buttons, reset the receiver, and leave. And sometimes, the TV would work again. For a few hours, then it would break again. And the resident would call maintenance. Again, and again, and again. Soon it felt like a never-ending cycle. Frustrated residents, endless service calls, and a cable company that seemed completely uninterested in fixing the root problem. What made it worse was their ridiculous policy. They refused to speak with staff. Instead, they insisted that each resident had to call personally. Now imagine being 85 years old, hard of hearing, trying to navigate an automated phone system. Please enter your account PIN. What is your secret question? Press 4 for technical support. It was nearly impossible for many of them. Some residents would try for 20 minutes and just give up. Others didn't even know their account information. So the problem just kept getting worse. Then there was Miss T. Miss T was one of the sweetest residents in the building. She always greeted people with the warmest smile. Every evening after dinner, she watched classic movies. Old westerns, black and white romances. She loved them, but one day her television stopped working. Days turned into weeks. Weeks turned into 2 months. 60 days with no television. And every time we tried to fix it, the company gave us the same runaround. Finally, I called them again and demanded they refund her for the time she'd lost. After arguing back and forth, they issued a credit, $21. I actually stared at the screen when I saw it. $21. That wasn't even half of a single month's bill. So I called them back. And that phone call changed everything. The representative sounded annoyed from the moment she answered. I explained the situation again. The outages, the elderly residents, Miss T being without service for over 2 months. And her response? Well, if the resident can't verify their account information, there's nothing we can do. At that moment Miss T was sitting right next to me, holding the phone with both hands, trying to hear what was happening. And something inside me just snapped. I told the representative that wasn't acceptable, that these were elderly residents being treated unfairly, that the company needed to do better. And she replied in the most dismissive tone imaginable. Well ma'am, there's nothing we can do about it. I felt my jaw tighten. Then I said something I hadn't planned. If this keeps happening, I'm going to throw every single one of your satellite dishes into a dumpster. She laughed, actually laughed, like I was joking, like I didn't have the authority, like I didn't matter. And that was the moment I stopped arguing. Because suddenly, I had a much better idea. Over the past year I had already noticed something else. The satellite company had done terrible installation work across the property. Cables running across sidewalks, dishes installed in the middle of courtyards, wires stretched across grass for hundreds of feet. Some were even running through gutters and downspouts. It looked terrible, and worse, it was a safety hazard. So I went to the owner of the facility and showed him everything. The outages, the complaints, the property damage, the disrespect toward residents. He listened quietly. Then he leaned back in his chair and said something simple. Do whatever you need to do to fix it. That was all the permission I needed. I started researching alternatives. Eventually I found a company that offered television through a landline network instead of satellite dishes. No signal interruptions, no dishes, no nonsense. There was only one problem. To make it work, we had to run new coax cables to every apartment. All 200 of them. It was going to be a massive project. But once I started, I couldn't stop. Day after day I crawled through ceilings, walls, and maintenance spaces. Running cables, installing connections, building an entirely new network for the building. And every time I felt tired, I remembered Miss T staring at that blank TV screen. And I kept going. Weeks later, everything was finally ready. The new company came in, installed the service boxes, connected the system, and turned it on. Suddenly, every single apartment had television. Crystal clear signal, reliable service. But the best part? Because of how the contract worked, television service was now included in the residents' rent. That meant something amazing happened overnight. Residents who used to pay monthly for TV now had it for free. Residents who never had television before now had full access. Over 200 senior citizens suddenly had reliable television, and more than 50 residents were saving money every month. But my favorite moment came a few days later. Miss T invited me into her apartment. She was sitting in her chair watching an old movie. The screen was bright and clear. She smiled and said, "Honey, this is the best my TV has worked in years." And honestly, that moment made every second of work worth it. Collision revenge payoff. A few weeks later the satellite company called. Apparently they noticed something strange. Hundreds of accounts from our property had suddenly been cancelled. They asked what happened. I calmly explained that we switched providers. And all of their equipment? The dishes, the cables, the receivers, they were being removed from the property. Just like I said they would be. There was a long pause on the phone. Then the representative quietly said, "Oh, turns out, laughing at someone defending elderly residents was a very expensive mistake. Sometimes revenge isn't about hurting someone. Sometimes it's about protecting people who can't always fight back." And honestly, seeing those residents happy again was more satisfying than any argument I could have won. If this story made you smile, make sure you like the video and subscribe for more real revenge stories like this. And tell me in the comments, have you ever seen someone stand up for a person who couldn't defend themselves? Because sometimes, the best revenge isn't loud. It's simply doing the right thing.